Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Lana Labonte, and I am here to uplift, support, inspire, and empower you to be the best version of you you are meant to be. So welcome to my living room. And we are continuing on with a series of chapters in The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Tonight, we're contemplating death. Chapter 17, if you're reading along. It is truly a great cosmic paradox that one of the best teachers in all of life turns out to be death. No person or situation could ever teach you as much as death has to teach you. While someone could tell you that you are not your body, death shows you. While someone could remind you of the insignificance of the things that you cling to, death takes them all away in a second. While people can teach you that men and women of all races are equal and that there is no difference between the rich and the poor, death instantly makes us all the same. The question is, are you going to wait until the last moment to let death be your teacher? The mere possibility of death has the power to teach us at any moment. A wise person realizes that at any moment they may breathe out and the breath may not come back in. It could happen anytime in any place, and your last breath is gone. You have to learn from this. A wise being completely and totally embraces the reality, the inevitability, and the unpredictability of death. Anytime you're having trouble with something, think of death. Let's say you're the jealous type and you can't stand anybody being close to your mate. Think about what will happen when you're no longer here. Is it really all that romantic that your loved one should be all alone with no one to take care of them? If you can get past your personal issues, you'll find that you want the person you love to be happy and to have a full and beautiful life. Since that is what you want for them, why are you bothering them now just for talking to somebody else? Lack, insecurity, fear of abandonment, rejection. Fear is the underlying current in all of this. We all know this, right? We've touched upon the subject enough. And that love doesn't place conditions. Again, that's just another example of clinging. Somebody needs to meet your expectations and serve your needs, but yet we claim to love them and get upset with them when they do something we don't like. Oof, the paradoxes. It shouldn't take death to challenge you to live at your highest level. Why wait until everything is taken from you before you learn to dig down deep inside yourself to reach your highest potential? A wise person affirms, if with one breath all of this can change, then I want to live at the highest level while I'm alive. I'm going to stop bothering the people I love. I'm going to live life from the deepest part of my being. This is the consciousness necessary for deep and meaningful relationships. Look how callous we get with our loved ones. We take it for granted that they're there and that they'll continue to be there for us. What if they died? What if you died? What if you knew that this evening would be the last time you get to see them? Imagine that an angel comes down and tells you, straighten up your affairs. You will not awaken from your sleep tonight. You're coming with me. Then you'd know that every person you see that day, you'd be seeing them for the last time. How would you feel? How would you interact with them? Would you even bother with all the little grudges and complaints you've been carrying around? How much love could you give the ones you love, knowing it would be the last time you'd get to be with them? Think about what it would be like if you lived like that every moment with everyone. Your life would be really different. You should contemplate this. Death is not morbid. Death is not a morbid thought. Death is the greatest teacher in all of life. Take a moment to look at the things you think you need. Look at how much time and energy you put into various activities. Imagine if you knew you were going to die within a week or a month. How would that change things? How would your priorities change? How would your thoughts change? Think honestly about what you would do with your last week. What a wonderful thought to contemplate. Then ponder this question. If that's really what you would do with your last week, what are you doing with the rest of your time? Wasting it? Throwing it away? Treating it like it's not something precious? What are you doing with life? That is what death asks you. And I have to say that as short as this chapter is, it really makes you sit there and go, damn, what the hell? It's a real, WTF are you doing with your life? Truly, are you going all in? Are you living it fully? Or are you, because again, fear. I'm saying this out loud because these are the things that go through my mind when I have those moments of reflection, okay? It's the holiday season. This is the time of year when my family's always close. I'm fortunate to have a family that's close, but unfortunately, Mom died 4.5 years ago, so for me, Thanksgiving is her. Her birthday was the 26th. When she was born, it was Thanksgiving. And we've always celebrated Thanksgiving as Mom's birthday anyway. And so, for me, it's like I'm a little melancholy, and also I miss her, but then there's a celebration of her, and death changes your life. It really puts it on a silver platter and says, how are you living? And now it's, for me, how am I living in a way that celebrates her through me? Anyway, let's continue. Let's say you're living life without the thought of death, and the angel of death comes to you and says, come, it's time to go. You say, but no, you're supposed to give me a warning so I can decide what I want to do with my last week. I'm supposed to get one more week. Do you know what death will say to you? He'll say, my God, I gave you 52 weeks this past year alone. And look at all the other weeks I've given you. Why would you need one more? What did you do with all of those? If asked that, what are you going to say? How will you answer? I wasn't paying attention. I didn't think it mattered. That's a pretty amazing thing to say about your life. Death is a great teacher, but who lives with that level of awareness? It doesn't matter what age you are. At any time, death could take a breath, and there may never be another. It happens all the time, to babies, to teenagers, to people in midlife, not just to the aged. One breath and they're gone. No one knows when their time will be. That's not how it works. So why not be bold enough to regularly reflect on how you would live that last week? If you were to ask this question of people who are truly awakened, they wouldn't have any problem answering you. Not a thing would change inside of them. Not a thought would cross their minds. If death were to come in an hour, if death were to come in a week, or if death were to come in a year, they would live exactly the same way as they've been living now. There is not a single thing they carry inside of their hearts that they would rather be doing. In other words, they are living their lives fully and are not making compromises or playing games with themselves. You have to be willing to look at what it would be like if death was staring you in the face. Then you would have to come to peace within yourself so that it doesn't make any difference whether it is or not. There is a story of a great yogi who said that every moment of his life he felt as though a sword were suspended above his head by a spider web. He lived his life with the awareness that he was that close to death. You are that close to death. Every time you get in the car, every time you walk across the street, every time you eat something, it could be the last thing you do. Do you realize that what you're doing at any moment is something that someone was doing when they died? He died eating dinner. He died in a car accident 2 miles from home. She died in a plane wreck on a trip to New York. He went to bed and never woke up. At some point, this is how it happened to somebody. No matter what you're doing, you can be sure somebody died that way. You must not be afraid to discuss death. Don't get uptight about it. Instead, let this knowledge help you live every moment of your life fully, because every moment matters. That's what happens when somebody knows they only have 1 week left. You can be certain that they would tell you that the most important week they ever had was that last week. Everything is 1,000,000 times more meaningful in that final week. What if you were to live every week that way? At this point, you should ask yourself why you aren't living that way. You are going to die. You know that. You just don't know when. Every single thing will be taken from you. You will leave behind your possessions, your loved ones, and all your hopes and dreams for this life. You'll be taken right out of where you are. You'll no longer be able to fill the roles you were so busy playing. Death changes everything in a flash. That's the reality of the situation. If all these things can be changed in an instant, then maybe they aren't so real after all. Maybe you'd better check out who you are. Maybe you should look deeper. The beauty of embracing deep truths is that you don't have to change your life. You just have to change how you're living your life. It's not what you're doing, it's how much of you is doing it. That right there is probably one of the most profound statements. It's not what you're doing, it's how much of you is doing it. How richly, fully are you living in your life? Not what are you doing, what you've accomplished. It's how rich that experience of what you were doing was because you were so present in it. Let's take a very simple example. You've walked outside thousands of times, but how many times have you really appreciated it? Imagine a person in a hospital bed who has just been told they've got a week to live. They look up at the doctor and say, "Can I walk outside? Can I look at the sky just one more time?" If it were raining outside, they would want to feel the rain just once more. For them, that would be the most precious thing. But you don't want to feel the rain. You run and cover up. What is it that won't let us live our lives? What is inside of us that is so afraid that it keeps us from just enjoying life? This part of us is so busy trying to make sure the next thing goes right that we can't just be here now and live life. All the while, death is watching our footsteps. Don't you want to live before death comes? You're probably not going to get a warning. Very few people are told when they're going to die. Almost everybody takes a breath and doesn't know they didn't take another. So start using every day to let go of that scared part of you that won't let you live life fully. Just do it. Since you know you're going to die, be willing to say what needs to be said and do what needs to be done. Be willing to be fully present without being afraid of what happens in the next moment. It's a gift of the now, people. That's how people live when they face death. You get to do that too, because you are facing death every moment. Learn to live as though you are facing death at all times, and you'll become bolder and more open. If you live life fully, you won't have any last wishes. You will have lived them every moment. Only then will you have fully experienced life and released that part of you that is afraid of living. There is no reason to be afraid of life. And the fear will fade once you understand that the only thing there is to get from life is the growth that comes from experiencing it. Life itself is your career, and your interaction with life is your most meaningful relationship. Everything else you're doing is just focusing on a tiny subset of life in an attempt to give life some meaning. What actually gives life meaning is the willingness to live it. It isn't any particular event, it's the willingness to experience life's events. What if you knew that the next person you'd see would be the last person you'd ever see? You'd be right there, soaking it all in, experiencing it all. It doesn't matter what they were saying, you just enjoy hearing the words because it would be the last conversation you'd ever have. What if you brought that kind of awareness to every conversation? That's what happens when you're told that death is around the corner. You change. Life doesn't change. The true seeker commits to live like that every moment and lets nothing stop them. Why should anything stop you? You're just going to die anyway. If you challenge yourself to live as though it were your last week, your mind may come up with all kinds of suppressed desires. It may start talking about all the things that you've always wanted to do, and you may think you had better go do them. You will soon see that's not the answer. You have to understand that it is your attempt to get special experiences from life that make you miss the actual experiencing of life. Life is not something you get. It's something you experience. Life exists with or without you. It has been going on for billions of years. You simply get the honor of seeing a tiny slice of it. If you're busy trying to get something, you will miss the slice you're actually experiencing. Every one of life's experiences is different, and every experience is worth having. Life is not something to waste. It is truly precious. That's why death is such a great teacher. It is death that makes life precious. Look at how precious life becomes when you imagine you only have a week left to live. How precious would life be if there was no such thing of life? You'd waste every second of it because you'd figure you'd always have it. There'd be plenty. It is scarcity that makes things precious. It is scarcity that makes a simple rock a rare gem. So death actually gives meaning to life. Death is your friend. Death is your liberator. For God's sakes, do not be afraid of death. Try to learn what it's saying to you. The highest way to learn is to take each moment of your life and realize what matters is to live it fully. If you live each moment completely, you will have a fuller life and you will not have to fear death. You fear death because you crave life. Sit with that for a moment. You fear death because you crave life. How many people die before they die? They're not living. They're just going through stages, anticipating the death. And so they're checked out already. Some of us go through waves. I think we all have those moments where we're stuck, but something jolts us and we make our way out of it. Don't judge it. Just recognize it. Okay, I've been there. And then when we remember, because that's what we're here to do, we go back. We'll vacillate. Again, meditation will bring us into the awareness. It will slow us down to witness our mind and our experiences more deeply. And it will give us that opportunity to reflect while we're doing it. until you really get into the meditative mind, you may think, wow, I just missed a whole experience because I was checked out during the time. Powerful, deep reflections. You fear death because you think there's something to get that you haven't experienced yet. Many people feel that death will take something away from them. The wise person realizes that death is constantly giving them something. Death is giving meaning to your life. You're the one who throws your life away. You waste every second of it. You get in your car, drive from here to there, and you don't see anything. You're not even there. You're busy thinking about what you're going to do next. You're a month ahead of yourself, or even a year. You're not living life, you're living mind. So it is you who throws your life away, not death. Death actually helps you get your life back by making you pay attention to the moment. It makes you say, my God, I'm going to lose this. I'm going to lose my children. This could be the last time I see them. From now on, I'm going to pay more attention to them, to my spouse, to all my friends and loved ones. I want to get so much more out of life. If you are living every experience fully, then death doesn't take anything from you. There's nothing to take because you're already fulfilled. Your cup is already full. That's why the wise being is always ready to die. It doesn't make any difference when death comes because their experience is already whole and complete. Suppose you loved music more than anything else. You always wanted to hear your favorite classical composition played by your favorite orchestra. That was the dream of your life. Finally, it happens. You're there and you're actually hearing it. It completely fills you. The very first notes lift you to where you needed to go. This shows you that it only takes a moment to become absorbed in a transcendental peace. You really don't need much more time before death. What you need is more depth of experience during the time you're given. That's the way to live each moment of your life. You let it fill you completely. You let it touch you to the depths of your being. There is no moment that can't do that. Even if something terrible happens, view it as just another experience of life. Death has made you a great promise in which you can find deep peace. The promise is that all things are temporal. They are just passing through time and space. If you have patience, this too shall pass. The wise realize that in the end, life belongs to death. Death is the one who comes in his own time to take life from you. Death is the landlord and you're just the tenant. People say things like, he's living on borrowed time, or he got a new lease on life. From whom did he borrow the time? From death, of course. Death is the one who comes to claim his property because it has always belonged to him. You should have a healthy relationship with death, and it should not be one of fear. Feel grateful to death for giving you another day, another experience, and for creating the scarcity that makes life so precious. If you do this, your life will no longer be yours to waste. It will be yours to appreciate. You know, appreciation makes it grow and expand. Return on your investment. Death is an ultimate reality of life. The yogis and saints fully embrace death. St. Paul said, "O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory?" 1 Corinthians 15:55. Great beings don't mind speaking of death. Yogis have traditionally gone into graveyards and burning ghats to meditate. They sit there to remind themselves of the frailty of the body and the inevitability of death. Buddhists are taught to contemplate the temporal nature of things. It is all temporal, And death says this to you. So instead of getting lost in the normal mental chatter, why not contemplate the temporal nature of life? Why not think about something meaningful? Don't be afraid of death. Let it free you. Let it encourage you to experience life fully. But remember, it's not your life. You should be experiencing the life that's happening to you, not the one you wish was happening. Don't waste a moment of life trying to make other things happen. Appreciate the moments you're given. Don't you understand that every moment, every minute, you're a step closer to death? This is how to live your life. You live it as though you are on the verge of death, because you are. Wow. Death, your teacher, your friend, your landlord. What you need is more depth of experience during the time you're given. Let it fill you completely. Let it touch you to the depths of your being. You fear death because you crave life. Wow. I can say a lot of things about death. Just from observing over the years, I had had friends. I remember stories very often where people's lives changed immediately after having near-death experiences. It really woke them up to the frailty of life, the temporal knowing that I could have been dead right now. I remember, I'll tell one story. So I had a friend years ago in Italy, and his wife had a death experience, a near-death experience. And he understood why she chose to change her life, because he witnessed her go through a deep transformation, a total wake-up, to where she divorced him and then she wanted to live a totally different life, because she realized that she wasn't doing what she wanted all along. And sometimes that's what death does, is it wakes us up to, I'm not living the life I've always wanted. I'm just going through the motions. How did I get here? How many people wake up to that? And if you've watched my videos in the past, I talk about change. Change is like death. And when you have change occur in your life, and so for me, when I also read this, I look at it as change is a form of death. It doesn't matter how major, minor it is. Any change in your life can set off the grieving cycle, can cause you to contemplate and deeply reflect upon your life even more. Like, did I make the right choice to change? What ifs? The whole series of questioning yourself, whether you made the change yourself or the change was made for you, and then you're questioning, could I have done something better? What if it's all the what ifs. So when we go through change, and it can be another person dying, it can be a near death. I know for myself, I've had major changes in my life, very profound, like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. And then I made changes. But also the near death ones, like me ending up in the hospital for my appendix. And that was a huge one for me. And not long after that, I made some serious changes in my life. That was when I was in a very toxic, narcissistic relationship, and I had that person living in my home. I literally had to call in a second person to be supportive so that I could ask that person to leave my home. Even though several times prior I had asked him to leave, he was very argumentative. And so it would turn into arguments all the time. Anything I said was a chance for him to try to exhaust me. So that meant I had to call in somebody to be the witness to ensure that he wasn't going to hijack me and try to stick around longer. So that friend came, and when I had that encounter, he had no other choice but to leave. But it was for my health's sake that I needed that to happen. Because I probably might not have ended up in the situation I was in, landing in the hospital, calling 911 with a ruptured appendix. Because I was under a lot of stress during that time of my life. And you know what? Your body's always telling on your mind, people. And the manifestation of the appendix bursting is deep disgust with someone. And that someone's not going to be the other person. That's just a mirror reflection of the choices you've made. So in my own case, I had to look at it and go, wow, I was really deeply disgusted with myself and the fact that I was still in that relationship. And that relationship lasted barely 2 years. And I'm grateful I had that experience because it woke me up to my own value, my own worth. Like, how did I get there? How did I allow that? And I also understand, having been in that relationship, with compassion, I understand how people don't realize they're so deep in a toxic relationship, they don't know how to find their way out. And that it does sometimes require asking for help outside of yourself. Because I had to do it. I had to do it, and I'm a strong person. So it seems, so people would assume. A lot of people don't know what I was going through because I didn't air my dirty laundry. I kept a lot of things to myself, and I only had a few people that I trusted to share what was going on. But you don't need to air your dirty laundry. Don't worry, I got books for this. I got a book coming out for that. But change is like death. And if anything, change is going to get you to recognize, wow, where was I clinging? Why was I holding on to something? Why was I holding back? It makes us question ourselves no matter what. Am I living fully, or am I barely living? And even recently, I've made some changes in my life to where I realized my routine, my general daily routine has changed. So when you're used to doing certain things and then your daily routine changes, it's like, oh, it's kind of a shock to the system. So again, change is like death. And we have to honor the cycles of death, which requires us to mourn it, like appreciate it, have gratitude for, what is going, which will no longer be. Acknowledge that it served you. Even if you want to label it good or bad, it doesn't really matter. It was just an experience. And again, they're all fleeting. And so when it passes and a new one comes in, you have to make space for it. You have to let go of the clinging of the old, create the space by letting that go so you can allow the new to come in. And the mind only freaks out because it's unknown. For that small period of time, you're sitting there waiting for the next bus to come by to pick you up. You don't know what's coming next. But I suggest you start getting excited. When your mind starts to go into that fear department, comparing to the worst case scenario, dropping into the past, because that's what happens. The mind hijacks you into the problem solving space, because thoughts are just problems you're trying to find solutions to. And when it does that, it just takes you out of the present, reduces your power to practically nothing because you sent it to the past. So essentially the mind hijacks you and steals you out of your present, takes your presence out of the present. Your power is all in the present, people. Whether you go to the past or the future, when you're in your mind, you're usually in the past or the future. Of course, we're going to have thoughts, but it's the clinging to those thoughts that causes us to suffer and to struggle and get caught up in losing our vital life force energy because we're not using the innate power within us. The will is trying to force itself upon you. The mind is trying to master you. In those moments, again, breathe. Master your breath, master your mind, master your life. Change is always happening. Change is the one constant in life. And that change may come one day where you take one breath in and there is no exhale. Or your exhale goes out and there's no more inhale. Appreciate it all. Recognize that the breath that you take in is the spirit, is the life force. It is God loving you so much that He breathes into you. I'll say He, she. God source provides you the spirit that you take in as breath. That is the gift that we should be praising, and to be living our life as a living prayer with gratitude and devotion and dedication to being as fully engaged as possible. Just bring yourself back to the present. No matter what, we're going to be scattered at points in our lives. Contrast is what shows us the imbalances. When we are swinging on that pendulum of life, always remember, we're on extremes. Two halves of the whole, duality, that's contrast. It's meant to show you how to bring yourself back to the neutrality. This, that, yin, yang, 1, 0, true, false, feminine, masculine, positive, negative, happy, sad. They're two halves of the whole. They're not opposing each other. They're not combating with each other. They're just showing you when you're swinging. And that when you notice you're swinging, you bring it back to neutrality. And how to do that is always going to be through harnessing the power of your breath. The breath takes you back into this moment. When you come back into the presence of your essence, your breath, listen, tap into the sound of your breath. I was reminded earlier today about the Ujjayi breathing, which is the sound of the ocean. It's kind of like you can inhale and exhale, but what you do is you constrict the back of the throat just slightly. Or a good way to do it is also to kind of like inhale through the nose. And you know how when you go to make the fog on the mirror, you go, you want to make that noise. But it's kind of like constricting the throat a little bit, not a lot, to where you sound like. So you feel the concentration of the breath right at that downward portion where it starts to go down and around. Breathing deep into the pelvic floor, expanding the belly, expanding the chest. Lift on the exhale, the chest lowers, the ribs contract, the belly pulls in and up. While you're doing this Ujjayi breathing, sound of the ocean, you don't want to overdo it. You don't have to make it really loud. It's really just to bring you into awareness of listening. Because when you're listening, you can't be thinking, and when you're thinking, you can't be listening. I mean, you can observe, but essentially it's the thinking that takes you out of the now. So we always want to bring it back to the present. You just use the breath. Your essence is the presence of your breathing, which is your spirit. I love you so much. I hope you enjoyed contemplating death. How powerful is that? Death is our biggest teacher. Gives us the greatest gift of life. Again, so much love from my heart. Smash the like button, click the notification bells. Sharing is caring. Be so kind and subscribe. If you found value in this, please share, because you never know who out there needs the message, especially during these times. This book is always a great revisit, and I hope you're enjoying what I'm sharing in addition to it. So, I'll see you on the next chapter. From my heart to yours, I love you.